Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Alyssa, she, they. And today we're here to talk about episode 7, Bully.
Boo.
Boo.
This one's tough.
It's tough. This episode fills me with sadness and rage.
I know.
Like always, this episode was written by Alice Oseman and directed by A. Ross Lynn. And according to Netflix and IMDb, this is the episode where, after both Nick and Tao get into fights with Harry, Charlie worries that he's making Nick's life too difficult and straining his friendship with Tao. Or the one where I just cry a lot.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Is it the saddest episode?
Yes, yeah.
It's
because even though there are sad parts in the other episodes, there's not like a good uplift in this one. Like it ends
just sad.
It ends so sadly, and so it's like, yeah, it has to be the saddest episode for sure.
I'm just sad or mad the whole time.
Yeah, I get really angry.
That's a lie. There's one part where I'm not sad or mad, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, the one highlight.
One highlight.
Okay, so before we get into the episode, I did want to read off some of our responses we got to our question about anti-homophobia cheese. And if you don't listen on Spotify, it has this cool feature where you can like ask a question or put a poll on the Spotify episode so that listeners can interact with you. And so we asked, what type of cheese would be your anti-homophobia cheese? We got a lot of Kraft singles. Mm-hmm. I think the ability to slap them with it is a very top-notch response. Mm-hmm. Super processed American cheese, which I feel like is a Kraft single.
Yeah.
One person said one of those industrial-sized Costco bags of Mexican cheese.
Again, that's the kind of thing where it wouldn't be anti-homophobia cheese. It would be gone in 5 seconds.
It would be a snack. Exactly.
Yeah. My body would not be happy, but that's what would happen.
We got a lot of blue cheeses, which was my first instinct.
Yeah.
You know, the smellier, the better. Mm-hmm. One person said brie. Definitely a stinky blue cheese. There's another one. And we got one that says mozzarella. That I would just eat. I would just eat it immediately. It would never make it.
I don't know about mozzarella. I would totally eat it. I'm just like, I don't know what would be satisfying about it.
If you get like the ball.
That's right. There's some weight
like,
to
chuck it.
You could lob it.
Yeah.
I always think of like mozzarella sticks. That's why.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sticks or like shredded mozz. But I think for anti-homophobia cheese purposes, it would be like the heavy ball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You could really get some weight behind it. And then this person put individual pieces of toast cheese because then I can walk up to the homophobe, unwrap the little cheese square while they're just staring at me confused, and then I can smack it on their forehead so it sticks. I appreciate the detail in that one.
Yes. The better the visual, the better.
Exactly. And then on Instagram, Logan said, as an Italian American, I would love grated Parmesan to be like pocket sand, which I just lost it at the idea of someone just like reaching in their pocket and then like just like blowing cheese in someone's eye. So like top-notch answer.
Excellent.
Those were our anti-homophobia cheese contenders. Yeah.
The smelly soft cheeses I definitely can see, or like some crumbled blue cheese, because then you could just like pull it on top of their head, like the blue cheese of shame. Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
Or you could do that thing like people when they take like hot dogs and stuff and try to like sneak it in people's clothes. You could just like crumble some blue cheese in their hoodie hood or like in their pocket. Like good luck smelling that later, and it'd get all smushed. In there, like, ugh.
Awesome anti-homophobia cheese suggestions.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yeah. And so then we also got some responses about our discussion around the gyms and why were they not performing in an auditorium? And apparently it's not common in the UK for schools to have an auditorium. everything's done in the gym, which they call a sports hall, which I think sounds so much fancier than gymnasium. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to learn.
As a former music and theater kid, I could never. I could never. This is like my living nightmare.
Yeah, the acoustics in a gym, like, ugh.
Yeah. I would rather, so my elementary school, because it's an elementary school, it didn't have like an auditorium, right? It had the cafetorium.
Oh no.
Which was cafeteria. It was the cafeteria, but there was but it was like a proper stage.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, so we would have all of our assemblies in there, you know, a bunch of freaking first graders sitting cross-legged on the floor of the cafeteria, right? We would do our school concerts, because 4th and 5th grade at that school had band and chorus and stuff. We would do our school concerts in there, all of like the awards ceremonies. And that was fine because at least there was like a stage,
right?
You know,
yeah.
Like there's got to be a stage somewhere, that you could put on these performances. Why is there not a stage?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Somebody does, though. Write in and let us know.
Does,
why is this the case?
I just am upset.
Yeah. Someone else also wrote in and said that they had originally thought the same thing that you did about the gyms, but it is 2 different gyms. And I went back and looked, and they're different colors.
See, I think that makes me even more mad. Because why the fuck then would their rehearsal be at Truum if the performance wasn't going to be at Truum?
Maybe they take returns so that like the Truum boys aren't always coming over to Higgs, and maybe the next performance will be at Truum. Maybe they alternate, you know?
Okay, all right, maybe that's a generous. I don't know why this made me as mad as it did when I watched that episode back, but all of that concert stuff I must have been in a bad mood that day or something.
You were like, I'm not having any of this.
But also, it's just one of my like really annoying niche things, because I did music from 4th grade till 11th grade.
Yeah.
Episode starts in a great place with the song Bang Bang Bang, which is like, we're doing a music episode soon. And I'm gonna talk about this one. It's a sneaky one because I feel like I forget about it. Every time I listen to it, I'm just like, this is great. I'm very happy.
Yeah. What I did was I made a playlist of all my favorite songs and artists from the soundtrack, and then added other songs of theirs to it so that I can do a deep dive into everybody. But yeah, this is on my list too.
Awesome. Yeah. And we go into Charlie's room in another excellent sweater, by the way. Yes. This one, I describe it as understated but excellent rust-colored cable knit.
Yeah, it looks so comfortable.
I know. And he's like in his mirror, zhuzhing his hair.
His cool-ass mirror, too.
Yeah, it's a really cool mirror.
I love
this mirror.
Reminds me
of something out of, and this came out after Heartstopper came out, but The Sims 4 recently released a high school. It is called The Sims 4 The High School Years or something like that.
Okay.
And it reminds me of some of the mirrors that one of the mirrors in, I think it's that pack. Man, if it's not that pack, I'm going to feel stupid. But there's like a really cool mirror in a recent pack. There's like, it's either that or the Pastel Pop kit. Anyway, unnecessary side rant. But he's got a really cool mirror. And he's, of course, checking his hair because he's going to see Nick.
And so then he goes over to his closet where we see he has 800 pair of Converse. And I'm so jealous.
The most glorious Converse collection ever.
I love those blue ones.
Yes. I was disappointed that he didn't choose them.
I know, yeah.
They don't go with the outfit, but you know, I'm all for, I have like mustard yellow Converse and I wear them with everything. I'm all for a contrasting shoe.
Yeah.
Especially when it's Converse. But yeah, I wrote in all caps, I want Charlie's Converse collection. And I remember before I showed Eddie the show, out of context, I just paused it and I showed him this and I was like, hey, can I have this shoe closet? Can I have these shoes? And he was like, no, you can't. He thinks I have too many shoes as it is, which I do. Like in his defense, he's probably correct. But Anyway.
So then Tori slinks in again.
Yes.
Scares the shit out of him.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we get our iconic, Jesus, Tori, how do you just appear out of nowhere? And she says, older sister magic. Yeah. Such a good, iconic line.
Which can confirm the existence of older sister magic as the oldest of three.
Right.
But she's great. I love her. And Charlie says that he's going to the cinema.
Cinema?
I can't unhear the way that you say cinema with a not British, but trying to like use the same emphasis as a British accent. Yeah.
Ben says it again at the end too. Like it's very pronounced.
But he says he's going with Nick and his friends. And all throughout this conversation, Charlie is very seriously looking at every single pair of these Converse.
Yes. He is taking into consideration every single option.
Which I don't even remember. I didn't write down which ones he ends up going with.
I think they're just white.
Okay. I think the black ones would have been better, maybe, but whatever. You know, you can't go wrong with your trusty pair of white Converse. Although his need a wash.
I'm a fan of the dirty shoe. I don't like a crisp white shoe.
I don't like a crisp white shoe. There's like a level of like dirty and worn out that's like my maximum before I'm like, this is disgusting.
I've literally had Vans that I have duct taped together to keep wearing before. Granted, I was in high school, not my adult life, but I have done that. So.
Fair. But anyway, so like while he's talking to her, he then finally tells Tori that he and Nick are going out. And Tori gets... I wrote, she is giddy, and then I put in parentheses, well, as giddy as Tori Spring can be.
Right. She looks, it all in her face. Again, the actors in this show with their face acting. Yes. She's both relieved and extremely excited.
She's like, called it.
Yeah, her little, like her breath hitches. You can see, like, she's, like, so excited. And Charlie is so fucking happy. Mm-hmm. He has the biggest grin on his face, and he tells her.
Yeah, it's so cute.
But my note is just, Tori is the perfect sibling. She's supportive and celebratory, but she's also cautious and concerned because she knows the type of people that Nick hangs out with. Mm-hmm. And she knows that they are a threat to Charlie.
Yes. And she also gives him just the perfect amount of shit.
Yep.
Because, so she asks if they're boyfriends, and Charlie says they're not ready to label it yet, which we're going to come back to. Then she says, well done. Your crush on him was super embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it's just like the perfect amount of shit to give your sibling.
Yeah.
In a loving way.
Yeah. And she kind of lets it go for a second. And then she comes back with, your crush on him was super embarrassing. So like, she's very good at like dishing it out in small doses. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk about this part.
Do we? I know. There's going to be a lot of, I don't want to talk about this part in this episode, isn't there?
Yeah.
But yeah, so as I said, Tori asks Charlie if Nick and Charlie are boyfriends. And Charlie says that they're not ready to label it yet. I think, I mean, we'll talk about boyfriend in that episode, but I think that if Charlie said something to Nick, they would have been boyfriends long ago. But we have this anxiety flashback, is what I'm calling it, that kind of contextualizes why Charlie, without having had a conversation about labeling or not labeling anything, might be feeling reticent to label their relationship as anything.
I was just looking at my note. It says, fucking Ben Hope. I wish him nothing but the worst.
Yeah. Don't we all? Don't we all? Charlie and Ben are hanging out in the library, and Charlie asks Ben if he wants to like go over to Charlie's place to hang out. Mm-hmm. And Ben kind of brushes him off.
He gives the most asshole answer. He's like, why? We hang out here.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's really
God,
shitty.
I hate you so much.
Yeah. Fuck right the fuck off, Ben. And then Charlie's like, well, I didn't write down the whole thing, but he's like, well, since we're boyfriends. And Ben snaps.
Mm-hmm. He loses it.
He's like, why would you think that? We're not boyfriends. You're not my boyfriend.
it's like, I don't know, we've been making out for weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know what could have given me that impression.
Yeah. And Charlie just crumbles. And the animation is so cool because it's just like the world shatters around him.
This animation fucking rocks. It's
so good.
Effective. I also love the lighting, how it's like all dark blue and they've got that like grainy spotlight on them. I love it. I also tried really hard to pick out any books behind them to see like kind of what section they were sitting in, but I couldn't make any titles out, so I don't know.
Yeah, the lighting was a bit tricky for that.
Yeah.
But also the like sound effect too. Like I feel that sound effect of like the glass shattering in my soul every time I watch this. I can hear it now, and I'm like feeling. We need to move on.
Yeah, it's. Ugh. So
then
it cuts back to the mirror, and he is kind of staring at himself, and you could tell that he's like really feeling the weight of this memory.
Yeah,
he kind of sorts himself out and takes a breath and walks on out.
Off he goes, and then we go to the parking lot with chauffeur and number one dad, Julio Spring.
Yeah,
who
Sweetie
tells Charlie that pickup is at 10 and that Charlie should call him if any of Nick's friends does or says anything nasty. Like a good dad.
Yeah.
Also, question. Do we see Julio Spring's legs?
I don't think so.
In this show?
No.
I think every time we see him, he's in the car.
Yeah. But I love that they're like at least letting him go. Even though that Julio's concerned because he knows, I mean, the last time he dropped him off somewhere with Nick, he got back in the car fucking having a meltdown. So just the fact that he's still allowing him to go and being supportive of him, like trying to socialize while also being reserved and cautious. It's like him and Tori really just top-notch family members.
Yes. When Julio says to call if any of the boys does or says anything nasty, Charlie, like, he just responds by saying that Nick's gonna be there and that means it'll be okay. And I mean, so maybe you have a similar experience, and maybe someone who hasn't watched it as many times as we has a different like sense of things. I literally, maybe this is just because I've watched the comics, read the comics, and watched this so many times. But I know that even with Nick there, it's not going to be fine. And it hurts. And I just want to like shake Charlie and tell him that Nick being there and things being fine are two different things.
Yeah.
And like, obviously at this point, he doesn't know that Harry and Ben are going to be there.
Right.
But still, I like knowing there was never a point for me watching this show where I didn't know that Harry and Ben are going to be there because I had read the comics first.
Right.
And so every time I was like, oh God, oh no, oh no.
I obviously did not. I watched the show first. So I didn't know they were going to be there, but I could tell by the tone, that something was going to happen. But back to the point about Charlie and Nick is that, like, Nick has not done a very good job of standing up to Harry at school. So I don't know where this, like, false confidence is coming from about Nick being there because he's at school and shit still happens at school.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just because he thinks Ben and Harry aren't going to be there and he thinks the rest of them will be fine without him, which they probably would have been.
Yeah, yeah.
So Charlie gets out of the car and walks. Nick's, you can see him back there waiting by the door. Also, I don't know what it is about this sweatshirt that Nick has on because it's not extraordinary. Like, there's nothing about it, but I want it. It looks so comfy, and I love the blue and the green. I don't know. Yeah. It's very plain, but something makes me want it.
It looks really cozy. It's like this sweatshirt I'm wearing right now. It's just like a Gildan sweatshirt. It's just really comfortable. It's actually from my brother's college soccer team. Nice. It's just really comfortable,
Yeah.
And also because it's a 3XL, so it's like oversized.
Heck
it's like oversized and super comfy. So
yes, yeah.
Which I didn't ask. My dad just did it when he bought it. He was just like, I got it a size too big, and I was like, good job.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. But so they hug, and there's no breaks this time. It's full speed ahead. They speed walk to each other and embrace, and it's adorable.
Yes, and what I said is, of note, neither of them looks around beforehand.
Yeah.
And this is a very affectionate hug.
It is.
And that just feels like a big step for them to not do the, like, wait, is it safe?
Especially knowing that all of the rugby boys are going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, anyone could be in that parking lot.
Like, I'm almost wondering, like, you can kind of, like, suss out, just, it's a big parking lot. You can kind of tell it's pretty empty. So, like, I'm wondering if that was a factor as well, but still seemed like a big deal for them.
Yeah, for sure. So he says, Ben and Harry weren't going to be there. And then my next note just says, they flirt a lot.
I know. I wrote out a lot of this. When they probably think I'm like this gay nerd. And Nick says, well, you kind of are a gay nerd. And Charlie says, shut up, rugby lad. Which reminded me of, there's a scene in the comic where Charlie calls Nick a rugby lad or something. And, like, Nick, like, really plays it up and they're, like, rolling around on the floor. And it's adorable. And I want it. I want it.
Yeah.
I want it in the show so bad. It would be, I want to see Kit, like, pretend to be a stereotypical rugby lad.
Yeah, that's like, the scene where he's like, we're going to go have a cheeky Nando's, eh? Like,
mate, right? Like, mate. Like, he says mate every third word, and then he just, like, chants, lads. Lads. I need it. Alice, Eros, everyone, give it to us.
Please.
But then they get to the bottom of the escalator, or they, like, walk into the theater, and the mood immediately shifts because Harry is there and Ben is there.
And they're already being shitty. They haven't even
literally
walked up to them yet. They just got off the escalator and Harry is, like, on it. And Ben's just standing beside him being a smug little fucker.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Harry says, why did he even bring him? Meaning, like, why did Nick bring Charlie? And my question is, why are you here?
Yeah. And also, like, they've been friends for so long now. Like, get over it. You know they hang out. Like, he's on the rugby team. This is a rugby meetup. Like, I don't know. I fucking hate Harry.
I do also have some questions that are kind of, like, about the the mythos of this, like kind of like confluence of events, because I'm like, what are the circumstances that led to this particular miscommunication? Like, were Harry and Ben a last minute addition? Like, did they get invited at the last minute and no one updated Nick? Were they originally invited and they couldn't go, which is why Nick felt like he could bring Charlie? My note says why Nick felt okay bringing Nick. But is that why Nick felt okay bringing Charlie? Did someone just neglect to inform Nick that they were coming? Did they decide to just show up uninvited, which seems like a very Harry and Ben thing to do? Or also, in that same vein, did they find out Charlie was going and decide to show up?
Or did they think that Nick wouldn't come, so they didn't tell? They were like, oh, Harry's not coming, just to try to get Nick there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
Questions.
Yeah.
No answers.
0 answers. Yeah. There's no way to know.
I'm choosing to believe that Harry and Ben just decided to show up. Probably because they heard Charlie was going to be there and to be pieces of shit. That seems, from what we know of the characters, that seems to be the most likely.
Yeah, from what we know about them and the dialogue, how he's immediately like, look, he did bring him. Like, it all signs point to them finding out Charlie's coming and wanting to show up just to be dicks.
Yeah, which I hate.
But tracks for both of their characters.
It does.
Well, Harry's there just to be a dick. Ben's there because he's jealous.
Yes. As we will discover.
So then we get this title card, and this one is definitely at the top for me. I know it's sad and awful, but it's so good.
Yes, it is. It's very good, but it makes me sad. And things that make me sad go to the bottom of this. But it is. It's got the like world shattering, that same animation from the anxiety flashback with Charlie and Ben.
It's good. It's a good one.
It's a good one, yeah.
So now they're walking down the hall at the movies, like walking in, and they're talking very loudly about him as if he's not there. And they do that all the time. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It makes my blood boil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so someone asks Ben if Charlie is his friend. And Ben says he's never even spoken to Charlie, which we all know is very false.
And he's saying it loud, like he's saying that particular line just as a dig to Charlie.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not Harry that asks Ben that. I want to know whose voice was that.
Yeah. And then Harry asks, why can't any of you ever bring a girl with you?
To which I scream, why can't you ever bring a girl, Harry?
That's, my note is, who is the any of you that you are addressing? Also, I can't help but notice that you haven't brought a girl, so shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have a lot of feelings about Harry and Harry's feelings.
Especially in this episode.
So Nick pulls him aside.
Yes.
Using the popcorn to kind of pull him away.
Mm-hmm.
But Charlie's obviously stressed, and now he's being offered food by Nick, which we don't really touch on in season 1 of the show, but we know from the comics and stuff that that's probably just heightening his stress even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, no, like I'm not hungry, but you should get some. You have some.
Yeah. Before that, though, Nick asks if he prefers salty or sweet or a mix of both. And I'm wondering if that's like regular movie theater popcorn, which is saltier, versus like a caramel corn or a kettle corn, which is sweeter, or if it's like a chocolate drizzle kind of deal. I was just curious what the sweet option is.
I assumed it was kettle corn because a lot of theaters, at least here, you can get kettle corn.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like regular like movie theater butter, kettle corn, and like the like cheddar.
Yeah.
But so this is when we get the really adorable line where Nick slips up and calls Charlie Char.
It's so cute. And he says that, and in the context of being really worried, I didn't write down the whole line, but like Nick is worried and he feels bad that Harry and Ben are there. But like Charlie is just fixated on the fact that Nick called him Char.
Yeah, he says like, Char, I'm so sorry. I really didn't know they were going to be here. And yeah, when he says Char, the music kicks in, and then my heart just starts like, it's like, oh my God, look how cute. But you're right. Like as soon as he hears it, everything else that Nick is saying, it just goes one ear and out the other. And he's just smirking. Yeah. He's got a little cute little smirk on him, and he's like watching him, and he looks down where Nick has touched his arm and looks back up. He's like, tee.
Yeah. And Nick finds this mortifying.
Oh, he's so embarrassed.
He's like, that just slipped out. I'm never saying that again.
He like starts touching his neck. He's like, oh God.
I'm like, but Nick, are you not looking at the reaction on this boy's face? Do you not want to be able to get this on command?
No, his embarrassment is too high. It's outweighing the reward at this point.
So then they're in the like actual theater, and I have some thoughts about the way that they're sitting. Did you notice this? It's fucking stupid. So they're spread out among 2 rows. And now here's the thing. If they were like evenly distributed, so they were, because there's what, like 8 or 9 of them?
Yeah.
If they were like evenly distributed where it was like 4 and 4 or whatever, right? I get that because then you're like geographically closer to everybody, right? I get that. But no, in the the front row of the 2 rows that they're sitting in, we have from the right moving down towards the aisle, Charlie, Nick, Cy, Otis, Christian, Harry, 2 characters that I don't recognize are on the end. And then behind them, there's another character I don't recognize, Ben, and another character that I don't recognize. So like just other members of the rugby team. And
or not, because Ben's not on the rugby team, but he just hangs out with them. So maybe the rugby team took 1 row and the outcast took the other.
But yeah, in any case, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 people in 1 row and then 3 people behind them, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And like part of it is so that when Ben confronts Charlie, he can say that he saw Charlie holding Nick's hand in the theater because Ben is situated right behind Nick and Charlie.
Which you know he did on purpose. You know he chose it. He probably came in last just so that he could see where they sat and get behind them.
Yeah. It's just so conspicuous and weird, especially because this is nowhere near a full theater.
Yeah. My note just says that they did a very good job getting as far away from Harry as possible, but a horrible job staying away from Ben, though I doubt they had much control over that.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about what movie do you think they're watching? Because originally I thought it was Scream, but only because he says, "Hello, lady," which makes me think of "Hello, Sydney."
Yeah.
But then the subtitles says like "Monster Gurgles" or something like that. And I'm like, "Monster?" So now I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'd like to imagine that it's like a really shit PG-13 horror movie kind of deal.
Yeah.
I also am trying to like orient myself in like time of what real movie it could be. I don't know. I don't know what they could be watching. But I based on that line, I assume that it's shit.
But so then the woman in the movie screams and Nick grabs Charlie's hand instinctively. And this is one of the shots where you can see that Ben is clocking this. You can see his eyes looking down, looking at them behind him. And Nick looks like a deer in headlights for a second.
Yeah. And then Charlie apologizes.
Yeah, for Nick grabbing his hand.
It to the point where it really threw me off and I had to rewind it.
Yeah.
And confirm, wait, Nick is definitely the one who grabbed. Like, I was like, wait a second. Wait, what?
Yeah. It's
like I fully had to take it back 10 seconds to see, just to confirm that my eyes had not lied to me.
Yeah. It's just Charlie, man. He's anxious and he feels like everything's his fault. And so the fact that his hand was accessible to grab, he's like, shit, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, Nick is like, you can see him kind of deflate a little, like he knows that. And he looks over to his right to see if Harry's paying attention, and he's not. So he reaches over with his little pinky.
Yes.
And he touches him. And we get Charlie whispering, "You're a dork."
You're a dork.
Which I love that line, and I use it all the time.
Me too.
My partner doesn't really know what it means when I say that, but I do. I use it all the time.
It's for you. That's like how whenever I ask a question to my students and they don't answer, even though they were all born in like 2009, 2010, I go, Bueller?
And they're
Bueller?
like, what?
They're like, literally at one point I had a co-teacher that was like, I don't think they get that reference. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't care. That was for me. That was for me.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I even say it with the British accent too. So I'm sure he knows that it's like a Heartstopper thing. But yeah.
I do actually have a quick note about like Nick looking over at his friends. I'm wondering if he doesn't know that Ben sat behind them. I wonder if he doesn't realize that there's 3 other people behind him because he only looks over to the people in his row. So I'm wondering, kind of like adding to, because the seating arrangement is so conspicuously weird, I'm wondering if, like you said, like Ben kind of like sneakily made sure that he was like the last one in and made sure that he sat behind them without Nick and Charlie realizing it.
But also, don't you think that it would be like it would just alert everyone behind him to them, even hyper alert them? Like if he turned around and looked at them, like that would just bring more attention to it.
It's there's just a lot of interesting.
It's so teenager.
I just have questions. Yeah, it is very teenager. Because then also, not for nothing, the other thing is because Charlie is the last one, so it's not like there's their like group of friends goes to the aisle. Yeah. So I'm like, the blocking is just questionable. I'm confused by the blocking.
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to come up with an a logical in-text explanation for it, and I'm struggling to like fully connect all of the dots. I've got like most of them, but I'm trying to close the circle and it's not closing itself. These are the kinds of things that I cannot turn off in my brain, where I'm like, this is kind of a logical inconsistency.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I know are like, why the fuck does that matter? And I'm like, it just does.
Yeah. But so we get our little fireworks.
Yes.
And our little stars and stuff while they hold hands proper. And Nick looks back one more time at Harry, and then it pans out so that we can see everyone. And all of them are looking at the screen except for Ben, who is still glaring down at Nick and Charlie. And it makes
glaring is a good word for
uncomfortable.
Makes us all uncomfortable.
And then they come out of the movie and they're just openly flirting in front of everyone.
Yes.
Very loudly.
Although I will say, I feel like this is an acceptable conversation between two people coming out of a horror film.
Yes.
So they can get away with it in a way that some of their other public flirting I cannot excuse.
Yeah.
Like, this is an acceptable conversation between platonic friends coming out of a horror film. But we all know that they're flirting.
Yeah. Just their little smiles and giggles while they're doing it. It's like, this is not platonic. But you're right. Yeah, it makes sense that they're talking about it.
Yeah, like you jumped at all the scares too. No, I jumped when you screamed.
Yeah. And then fucking Harry. Yeah. I think this is a very interesting name change from the comic. Because when, in the comic, he asks about Zane, but he asks about Harry in this one. And I'm like, Harry, why are you picking someone with the same name?
Well, I also, yes, it's that, but I also think that, like, in the zeitgeist culturally, Zane was definitely a bigger name and was considered, like, the hot one when Alice was writing that part of the comic.
And now
it's Harry.
It's true.
Far and away.
It's true. But I can't help myself from being cheeky about it.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I have some cheeky comments. Right? Because, Harry pushes in between Nick and Charlie, and he puts his arm around Charlie. Again with the touchy.
And he puts his arm around him, like, violently. Like, it, like, shoves Charlie a bit.
Yeah. And then he says, so, Charlie Spring, quick question. What's it like being gay? And I say, why do you want to know, Harry? Why do you want to know?
What is it like being gay, Harry? What is it like? Tell us.
That's what Tao would have said. If Tao were here, that would have been Tao's response. And Charlie says it's fine. And then Harry kind of, I cut out some of the, like, reactions and stuff to this.
Yeah.
But Harry says, you don't seem that gay, to be honest. You do sound sort of gay, but that's it. Do you like musicals? What sort of guys do you like then? What about Harry Styles? He's pretty sexy. Again.
Yeah.
Interesting statement. And then he says, what about Nick? And I'm like,
oh no, I know. And Charlie, he just deadpans. He stops and turns around and he's like, what? Are you joking? Nick's not even my type. And then we see Nick's face, and Nicholas Luke Nelson looks like he is going to break down into tears.
Yes. And before that, though, before we see him, like, absolutely, like, fall apart like that. So in the moment that Harry brings up Nick's name, if you focus, there's a lot going on in the shot, but if you focus on Nick, there's just this slight moment of panic that settles into anger that I absolutely love. It's such a little reaction
from
Nick that fits so well with the character, like where Nick is at in his journey. It's just like, oh my God, did he figure it out? And then realizes, oh, he's just being a dick. Like, it goes from panic to anger. Like, and it's a blink and you miss it kind of moment. What I wrote is, I absolutely love this as an acting choice, but absolutely hate it as a person watching this happen.
Yeah. This is such a hard scene to watch. I'm
Yeah.
really glad that they left out some of the lines from the comic, though. Because the comic
Yeah.
scene of this really fucking tears me up.
I will say, too, there's something about the motion of this whole, like, sequence, because they're, like, walking down the hallway, and, like, hallways are very claustrophobic spaces, and, like, they're all moving, so there's, like, there's no way out but through for Charlie. I like that about it, too. It adds to the, like, discomfort of it in a way. It's like, there's nothing you can do but bear
stuck,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cinematic stuff in this one that, like, I have some notes later about some of the scenes and the camera work that, like, is just, me too. One of my least favorite episodes, but very good. Very well shot.
Yes.
So, of course, Harry's not going to accept that answer, and he pushes further. But the second that Harry touches Charlie this time, Nick is on it. He snaps out of it, and he pulls Harry off. And Charlie bolts.
Yep. He's gone.
Nick is so pissed.
Nick kind of, like, hesitates for a moment. He's like, do I tell off Harry or do I go to Charlie? And he obviously, of course, goes to Charlie.
Yeah, well, he starts to tell off Harry, and then he turns around and sees that Charlie is, like, almost to the door now. And he's like, okay, no, I have to go after him.
Yeah. So in the parking lot, like, Charlie just keeps walking, and he's trying to leave without saying anything, without talking. But Nick stops him and, like, apologizes.
Yeah, my note says, so Charlie, bless him, is in fight or flight. He runs every time. Right now he's trying his damnedest to flee, but Nick catches up with him. And Charlie says he's used to it, and he walks away, and that line kills me.
Yes, and my heart breaks. And then, okay, this next part, it's one of those scenes where I hate it, but from a, like, as, like, a work of art, it is excellent.
It's very good, yes.
Right? Because the music, my note says, music changes from sad to ominous.
Yeah, it's, like, feels anxious.
Yes, and the way that it's shot, right? Like, we see Nick walking back into the building, like, away in the background. Charlie is in the foreground. There's, like, red lighting that, like, adds to the, like, anxiety of the shot, and it's, like, all dark, and, like, the only other lighting is from the overhead, like, the street lights in the parking lot. And Ben just, like, appears from the side in the frame, and the body language, like, he's
like,
it's, like, a very aggressive stance, and, like, it does such a great job of setting the tone for what's about to happen.
Where the fuck do you think he was?
Yeah, that's the only thing. I'm like, where were you?
I'm like, was he, like, crouching down behind that little wall waiting? Like, where was he?
So here's what I'm thinking. So a lot of movie theaters, right, they'll have, like, the emergency exits, but they're not alarmed, so that you can, like, get out without having to walk through the whole theater. But then you can still go back through the theater throughout the, like, main entrance. So I'm wondering if Ben, like, split off from the group and just went out that front entrance and was coming around from that direction.
That makes sense. Because one of my other notes was, like, how did he beat them? But we don't see Ben during the whole Harry homophobic exchange.
Yeah.
We don't see him in the background anywhere. So I was like, did he leave first and was, like, waiting out there? But I think you're right. Maybe he took a different exit and tried to come around and cut him off. Either way, it's fucking sleazy and creepy, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And Charlie instantly is, like, tense and stiff. Like, you can see his body language, like, tighten up.
And, like, you can imagine, like, you can only imagine the worst case scenarios that Charlie is playing out in his head. Just, like, given the context of, like, where they are. And it's, like, and, like, how aggressive Ben is in, like, all of this. He's like, he's gonna, like, you can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they're isolated in a dark parking lot by themselves, so, like, anything could happen.
And we know what Ben is capable of doing when he's mad.
Exactly.
So it's terrifying, and oh my god, it's really well done, but it's awful to watch.
Yeah, it's not great. And he says, I saw you holding hands with them in the cinema. And then this is just, like, it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking because Charlie says, no. And he says, okay, but you are getting with him. And Charlie says, no. And he says, don't lie to me. And then he goes in for the kill. And he just is, it just breaks my heart hearing these words. Like,
okay, I'm going to do it. And I'm very sorry,
I believe in you.
Okay. Well, I believe you're not going out with him. As if I'm literally crying. Okay.
It's so hard.
As if anyone would ever want to go out with someone as desperate as you.
And Charlie, at least I'm proud of him in this moment for like at least saying like you did.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end well.
Yeah. But yeah. And I did actually, my note says I can't decide if I want to pull Charlie into a protective hug or punch Ben in the face.
Both. One-handed hug, one-handed punch, and then finish the hug with the other hand.
Yeah, that's the move. That's it. Yeah, so Charlie says, you did. And it's like, you can tell that he wanted it to be like a lot more stingy than it is. He's just so scared and so broken that like it just doesn't have the effect that he wants it to.
Yeah, it almost comes out as like a whimper.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm proud of him for at least saying it.
Yeah.
And this is the part that really...
Are you joking? You actually thought I liked you. You were just there like some tragic loser with barely any friends who ate lunch alone and let bullies walk all over you. I never liked you. I'm not even gay. I just felt really sorry for you.
Keep telling yourself that, Ben.
Yeah.
God, I hate him so much. It hurts me so bad to watch this scene. And I'm so glad that Julio shows up when he does, because Ben is getting angrier and angrier. And if they had been left alone, this definitely would have escalated into something physical. And I am really glad we didn't have to see that. And I'm so glad that Charlie didn't have to experience that.
Yeah. I will say the way that Julio pulls up, right? So Ben has to walk past the car to leave, which again, though, is just questionable because I'm like, where the fuck are you going? Where did you come from? Where did you go? Like, I have so many questions. But every time I watch this scene, like Ben walks past the car, he like walks past the front of the car, and I'm like, oh, it would be a shame if Julio's foot slipped.
But Julio's being the best dad ever, and he's like, are you okay? You know, but Charlie won't talk about it.
I love the way that Julio responds to this, though.
Yeah.
Because he asks if Charlie is okay, even though it's obvious that he's not. Like, instead of going in for the what's wrong, like, it's, are you okay? And Charlie very clearly doesn't want to talk about it, right? So he doesn't press Charlie, but he does it like, are you sure? And like kind of create space where if he does want to talk about it, there is space for it. But then when Charlie like reiterates that he's fine and he doesn't want to talk about it, he drops it.
But he gives him a little shoulder pat first.
Yeah. And it's just like, I'm here. We both know that it's not okay, but also I'm going to respect the fact that you are not ready to talk about it yet. Because, like, not for nothing, if, like, whenever you're in a stressful situation like that, right, sometimes you just don't have the language to describe what's going on or how you're feeling that quickly after it happened. Like, Charlie is definitely still coming down. So I like that Julio gives him that space. Because, like, we all know if this was Jane...
Ugh. Thank God Jane doesn't drive him around.
Yes. If this was Jane, Charlie would be barrel rolling out of the car. Like,
just leave me here. I'll sleep in the parking lot.
Yeah. So the camera cuts back inside and Nick is storming down the hall back to the group.
Yeah. And he yanks Harry the way that he yanks him and says, go on then. What's your problem with Charlie? I'm so proud of Nick here. Outside of the violence, obviously.
Yes.
But Harry did deserve that punch.
Yeah. And I didn't write down a lot of what was said because this is one of those scenes that I was like, I don't want to linger here too long. So the entirety of my notes on this scene says, Nick storms back to the group, confronts Harry for being a dick. Nick gets really upset. Harry says he needs to learn how to take a joke. Nick calls him out on it. Harry says he's probably used to it by now, and Nick gets really upset. Harry uses the F slur, and then Nick fights him. Just like, that's it. That's the maximum that I am capable of writing about this.
And you know when Harry says, like, he's probably used to it by now, that just cut deep into Nick's heart after everything he's talked to Charlie about. But when he uses the F slur, Nick loses it and just punches him. And I know that I hear you, Sarah. Violence is not the answer. But in that moment, what are you going to do except punch a guy, you know?
It's all you can do. It's all you can.
Also, about this fight before we move on, that interview where we learned that they also thought that the milkshakes were disgusting. Immediately, I think, after they talk about the milkshakes, they talk about this scene. And Kit talks about how they broke the wall in that movie theater, or that set. I don't remember if it was a set or an actual theater.
I have to imagine it was a set.
It's because, okay, Nick punches Harry, and then Harry shoves Nick up against the wall. And then Nick flips it and shoves Harry up against the wall. And in that motion, they broke the wall, and Kit was like, I felt like a superhero.
Kit for Hulk Wing. Kit for Hulk Wing. Kit for Hulk Wing. That's adorable. Although you just reminded me that what you told me you found out about British milkshakes.
Right. We didn't talk about that. Someone commented on, I think it was on YouTube or maybe on TikTok. I can't remember. Somebody commented and said that they don't base their milkshakes off of ice cream. They base them off of flavored milk, which just makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, I'm a bit nauseated by that.
I haven't done any research into it. So if that is not the case, let us know, because it just makes me think of like strawberry Nesquik, which is like, fine if you want to take like 2 sips, but if you drink more than a little bit of it, it's like really gross, like, and it makes you so sick to your stomach. It's like,
it's just sugar.
It's sugar milk. Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, yes, you're right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. So then we cut to the car with Oscar winner Olivia Colman, who, again, side note, I recently watched the film Empire of Light, which stars her. It's on HBO Max. Watch it. It's really good. And it's actually set around the same physical location. It's like near Kent.
Oh, nice.
It's like near like the beach near Kent. So it's probably like, when I discovered that, I was like, ooh. It's like in the 70s though. So But so I was like, oh, this is not far from Nick and Charlie.
Yeah. But Mom is mad.
Mom is
so mad. She's gripping that steering wheel for life.
Yeah. And she says, are you going to tell me what happened? In like supreme mom voice, like excellent mom voice.
Yeah.
And then there's a quick shot to Nellie sitting at Nick's feet, and I had paused the video at one point perfectly on the shot of Nellie's like head resting on the seat in between Nick's legs. And I'm like, oh, good, Nellie's such a good girl, comforting Nick.
And she lets out like a little whimper too.
Yeah.
And he says there's not really anything to tell, and she is so mad. She's like, oh, Nikki, come on, baby. Like, what do you mean there's nothing to tell? You just got in a friggin' fist fight at the movie theater.
Yeah.
No story here. And he says that Harry was just saying some nasty things about Charlie, that he's been really mean and gross for a long time, and he used a bad word, and he just lost it.
Yeah, there's something else that he says that he's like really angry at himself because now he's realizing that all of his friends suck. And I'm like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience before. It's a really unpleasant feeling to realize that the people that you've devoted your time and energy to are not good people. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that sucks, Nick, but it's also really important because now you can start to cut that out of your life and you know what to look for in the future. So this is I'm with you. It sucks, but I'm also proud of you for being able to name that.
Oh my God. And then the way that she looks over at him when she says, Charlie's a really special friend, isn't he?
She has all the pieces of the puzzle before that. And when the way he said that Harry called him a really bad word was just the last piece getting clicked into place. Yep. Yeah. And she's like, I understand exactly what's going on here.
And she's trying to convey with her eyes and her face, like, you can tell me anything. You could tell by her face that she knows, and 2, she wants him to open up about it.
But also, again, not pushing it.
and you could tell that he wants to tell her, but he's just not ready yet. And he just says, yeah, he is.
And then I sob.
And even when we see his face again after that, when he's like dabbing his nose, he looks really disappointed in himself. Like he wanted to tell her in that moment, but he's just not there yet. And that's
he's
okay,
just not
Nick.
there. Yeah.
You just got to take your time.
Yes. And then Tired comes on. Tired starts playing, which I fucking love Beeba Doobie.
Yeah.
It starts, and then we get Charlie's depression montage, is what I call it.
Yep.
Where
I put Charlie looking very depressed.
Yeah. His alarm goes off and he just can't get up.
Yeah.
And then they're on the bus.
And he has his headphones on. He's not looking at Tori. He's not acknowledging her. And she looks at him and she's really worried. Yes. And it breaks my heart because you know she was so worried about the movies already. And then he comes back and is acting like this. She knows something happened, but he's not ready to talk to her about it.
I will say that reading Solitaire added a lot to like the moments in this episode and the next episode with Tori, like just kind of like really getting more of just how much Tori cares about Charlie, and words are failing me, but no, it's great. And it's just like she's really worried, but she doesn't know what to do because again, she's a teenager and she's also depressed and also needs therapy. But again, that should be explored in its entirety in a Solitaire spin-off film.
Yes, please. It should. But I love when they go to split up so she can go on to Higgs and he turns to go into Trim. The like little look and little nod they give each other, like their little goodbye.
Yeah, and I think she gives him like a little supportive shoulder bump too. Like she kind of like
it's like a little nudge.
Yeah. But another thing, right? So this is a family program. And the music, right? So the lyric is I'm getting really fucking tired, but they cut the fucking out. But every time I watch this, I start singing it and I say the fuck.
And I love that it's like alluded to in the captions as well.
Yeah, there's just like an ellipsis.
But and it's like, it would be so good if they could just use it because that's exactly enough like sadness plus angst to convey what's happening in this scene. But I understand Netflix. That doesn't mean I like it.
Yeah.
But I get it. And then we hear Harry. Looking for your boyfriend?
But Charlie sees that Harry's face is fucked up, and I didn't write down. He said, "What happened to you? What happened to your face?"
He says, "What happened?"
Oh, just what happened?
Because he looks at him and he says, "I know I'm attractive, mate, but you don't need to stare." And that's when he says, "What happened?" And did you get into a fight? And he says that Nick needs to learn to take a joke.
Yeah,
I just want to punch him again. I just want to punch him again harder.
I'm like, are you seriously like that delusional that you think that
you're right, that you're the one in the right here? Yeah.
I know people like this in real life and I cannot stand them. I'm like sometimes I will think, I'm like, are you so because here's my question to Harry and also to the people in my life who are like this. Are you like actively trying to gaslight, or are you really that stupid? Like
I think
I can't decide with Harry. I can't decide if he's really that stupid or if he's just gaslighting everyone or it's probably a combination of both.
I think he's trying to convince himself.
Yeah,
It's like he knows he's wrong, but he doesn't want to admit it and accept it. So he's putting these things out there to try to get some sort of validation for himself. That makes sense. Take on it, at least.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so he tells him to ask Nick, and they talk about the fight, and then Tao comes up, and Tao is panicked. But Harry won't let Tao go that easily, so he even steps in front of Tao and like gets physical with Tao.
Yes, and then Tao with another killer comeback. You clearly didn't get hugged much as a child, but if you're craving human contact that badly, you could just say so.
Yeah.
It's great.
So good. And Charlie's panicking that Tao's interacting at all. Like, he doesn't want him to engage in any way at all. So he's like, really, it's fine. Really, let's just go. And that's when Harry's like, yeah, maybe you should listen to your boyfriend. At least he knows his place. Which, like, fuck you and your class is bullshit. Like,
It's disgusting.
ugh.
And
Ugh.
it's like, it's classist, it's homophobic, it's ugh.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But I love this next scene. It's horrible, but I love the way it's shot. I love how the camera work is like all shaky, and it really creates this sort of like physical representation of the panic that Charlie's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So props again to the cinematography of this fucking show.
Yes. And yeah, Charlie, he's on a mission and nothing is going to stop him. And we get to class, and before we talk about the scene itself and the way that this is shot, and what's happening here, I want to point something out about the way that Nick sits. Because so much, he's like sitting up stock straight with his arms crossed. Mm-hmm. And it actually gets to a degree where like Eddie pointed it out to me, and he was like, have you guys talked about the way that Nick sits yet? And I was like, I feel like I've thought about it and then I haven't actually written it down because there's so much else going on, and it's like always really quick because once Charlie gets there, his body language
opens
changes.
Up. Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had a chance to fully test this yet, but Eddie was saying, like, you know, like arms folded is a very like guarded posture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like wondering like if as he like comes out and like is more comfortable in himself, if that posture is going to loosen up a bit.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking too is I was like, I'm wondering, I have to go back to see if we see him sitting that way in like Meet and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. That's something definitely to look into. I'm going to have to rewatch.
Mm-hmm. And Nick explains what happens. And like, you can just see Charlie spiraling into himself.
I also think it's important to point out that Nick tells a very abbreviated version of what happened. He doesn't mention the slur or anything. He just gives him the bare minimum information about it.
Yeah.
And he's broken over this, but not for the reasons that Charlie's imagining that he's broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I wrote, this scene makes me sad and I don't want to write about it because I already want to cry enough as it is. But what I will say is that Charlie doesn't have to feel sorry for Harry being the worst human ever.
But I also think it's really important because I don't know if anybody's ever said this to Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
When he says, Nick, I promise I'm used to it. And Nick says, no, but you shouldn't have to be. People shouldn't be saying stuff about you in the first place. You shouldn't have to put up with anything like that. Mm-hmm. And the first time that I watched this, like that was all like almost word for word, like, no, but you shouldn't have to be used to this is like exactly what my brain was saying. And so when Nick said it, I was like, yes, like, yes, I'm so glad that someone is saying this to him because I don't think anybody's ever said that to him. They've said like, you know, I'm sorry that you have to go through this. And they've been supportive, like Tao and them have been supportive, but I don't know that anyone has ever sat him down and like actually said like, it's not your fault and it's not your responsibility to like carry the weight of all these other people's feelings. Like you should not have to deal with this and you shouldn't be used to it, especially at 15 years old.
Yeah.
And then Charlie says that he doesn't expect Nick to dump his friends for him. Charlie, he's not saying he's dumping his friends for you. He's saying that he doesn't like them and he doesn't want them as friends anymore. He's changed and he understands now like what he wants and needs in relationships and in friendships, and they're not his people. They're not his people. And I think just like Charlie's anxiety it internalizes everything, right? So he hears that and he's like, I'm taking Nick away from his friends.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It's just not.
It's not the case. And I also, so in that conversation, Charlie says that some of the rugby boys are nice. Mm-hmm. And then Nick correctly points out that even they just stood there. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that we get more of like Sai, Christian, and Otis in season 2. Because number one, I really want that scene where they're trying to clue Nick in that they know. And then then they
mates.
fuck it up.
Yeah.
Good mates. We know you're really good mates. And then Nick just panics and leaves.
And then the other boys are like, why the fuck did you say that?
I want that. But also because I want to see, like, I believe Charlie that some of the other rugby boys are nice to him. Especially, like, we have that, like, montage in...
Yeah.
Like, we have the, like, rugby montage where everyone's, like, cheering for him. I think it's in Meat. It might be in Crush, though.
It's the first one.
We have that montage. It's like, I believe that they're nice. And also because the fact that Nick doesn't, like, disagree that there aren't rugby boys who are nice on the team. Like, he only says that even they just kind of, like, stood there and didn't, like, do anything. They were just bystanders. So I believe Charlie when he says that some of the rugby boys are nice, but I wish that we could see that some of the rugby boys are nice.
Yeah, I did pay attention during the movie theater scene when you can see Otis. He's the only one that I could really pick out of the group that I knew who he was. And he doesn't laugh. And he almost looks he looks pissed off about it. But he just stands there and watches. He doesn't say anything, but he doesn't laugh either.
Yeah, now I want to go back to first the, like, confrontation in Kiss, which I never paid too much attention to it because it just stresses me out so much.
Well, I do know in Kiss, whenever him and Harry are talking, like, after he gets done with Tara and he turns around and is like, where'd Charlie go? And they have that interaction. Otis is sitting, like, next, like, over to the left side of the screen. And he does look, like, really uncomfortable.
All right. So at least Otis, we know is I just want more of them.
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll get... And, like, on IMDb, there's, like, you know, Rugby Boy or whatever, but Otis does have a name, and so does Cy
and Christian.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that means that we will be getting more of them in season 2.
And then we go to the art room.
And Any Other Way plays.
And I...
Cry.
I skip that song.
I do too! Because it makes me so upset. It's a good song, but it makes me cry, so I don't listen to it.
Yep, same. That one, Our Window, I feel the same way about.
Oh my god, yes. Every time Our Window starts that first piano note, I'm like, nope, turn it.
Goodbye. Yep.
Yeah. Cannot.
There's a few where, that's, if Wisher the Automatic Skips isn't, on the music planning document, we gotta add
it. Yeah.
And so then Charlie goes to his, what I'm dubbing the sadness corner. Because it's the same corner where he's, like, in between, like, the two counters. And there's, like, the tree.
Sitting on the roots of the tree,
And opens his lunch, looks at it, and puts it away. And I cry.
And it's also just another subtle little scene where we see him not eating.
Yeah. And, like, once you start looking for it,
it's there. We see him. Well, we hear that he gets a slushie at the birthday party. We see him drink the milkshakes, and we see him eat a couple of fries in Boyfriend during the beach montage. And that's the only consumption of, like, calories we see him do.
And then we go to the park with Ellen Tao, and I don't like this scene.
Why?
Tao.
I knew that was going to be the answer.
It's mostly his, like, self-pity. Like, I don't know. There's just...
Yeah.
It's all the things that I lack the patience for with Tao all wrapped up in one scene.
I do love her rainbow umbrella, though.
Yes. No, my disdain for this scene has nothing to do with Elle. Elle can do no wrong.
Yeah. And she's such a good friend. She's very patient, and she listens, and she really hears you when you talk to her.
Yeah.
But Tao is finally realizing the error of his ways when it comes to sticking up to Harry. And she says the exact same thing that you said to me when we were recording. And I was like, I like that Tao is fighting back. And you were like, but it's only going to make them bigger targets. And I was like, I mean, fair. And then Elle is like, I'm like, okay, Alyssa.
Well, and I mean, the other thing is that Elle gets it in a way that Tao is never going to get it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And I think Tao is starting to realize that in this scene. He's like, oh shit, I fucked way the fuck up.
Yeah.
But I also have a bone to pick with Tao. I have many bones to pick with Tao.
I'm like, when do you not have a bone to pick?
In Friend.
Yes.
But only sort of. So Tao says that Elle could have told a teacher when Harry was bullying her at Truant. And I'm like, number one, we know that the teachers were also targeting Elle.
We know that some of them were transphobic for sure.
And like, disregarding that entirely, you're saying this to Elle. Have you told a teacher about what's happening with you and Harry and Charlie? Have you done anything other than escalate the situation? Like, if you're really that concerned about Charlie, do the thing that you're saying that Elle should have done.
Yeah.
Like, make it make sense, Tao. Make it make sense. And then Elle, I have mixed feelings about Elle's choices.
I know. Me too.
Here's the thing that let's talk about the scene, and then I will say what I have to say.
And then we'll tell our feelings.
Yes. Elle says she's not surprised that Nick started a fight with Harry if he was being a dick to Charlie, and Tao finally puts 2 and 2 together that something might be going on.
And like, that's the line. That's the line that pulled you over. Like, I don't understand your logic here, sir.
So he asks Elle, like, is there actually something going on between the two of them? And she has this like really conflicted look. And then she says they're going out.
I feel like she does not want to tell him, but she also can't lie to him at this point. Like,
exactly.
If she had lied, he would have known.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what she was grappling with. Like, how do I go about this situation? Because he's going to know either way.
And it would have made it 10 times worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then Tao asks, no, he like has this really confused face. He's like really confused. And then he asks who else knows. And Elle says, Isaac,
Literally
Tara, Darcy.
Everyone.
Yeah. But that Charlie wanted to tell Tao himself. And like, on the one hand, I get the like frustration at not being told, but also you've been spending so much time like actively shitting on Nick to Charlie's face. It's making it really hard to tell you anything because
he definitely did it to himself.
And like, I'm conflicted about how I feel about Elle telling Tao, because yes, on the one hand, like, he's gonna know immediately that she's lying. But
also, 1, it's not her place. 2, she's kind of betraying Charlie in this. And 2, she's outing Nick.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's not good.
And okay, so here's the thing, because this is also a massive deviation from the comics. It's one of the biggest ones. And I think I know why. Because, I mean, if you look at season 1 of Heartstopper, it's a very, like, it could, like, obviously we all want more, but it could exist as its own self-contained one season thing, right? And I think that the creators were very aware of the fact that Netflix sucks and often cancels shows without prejudice. So I think that from like the standpoint of Alice and like the producers and everyone behind the scenes, I think that it makes sense to make sure that Tao knows before the season ends, because otherwise that's a massive loose end. And so from a kind of extra textual perspective, kind of thinking about the real world of like making TV, I get the choice to have this happen, but I think it kind of feeds Tao's like self-pity in a way that I just find unpleasant and boring and annoying more than anything. And like, I get it, but I don't like it. And it also just it makes Elle look like a not good person for no reason.
And I hate the way that he leaves this scene too.
He just leaves.
And she's like, wait. And but also, I get it. When I get overwhelmed, I have to remove myself from the situation. So I do get it. But also, I think I would have taken the time to say, like, I'm not mad at you, but I just need to, I need to go process this.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah, and he says that he's like, I feel so stupid. And there's a part of me that is like, you should feel stupid.
Yeah, you are stupid. My note says, let me go back up. You, sir, are very dumb. That is my that's what I wrote. That was my note after he asked, like, is there actually something going on between Nick and Charlie?
Yeah. Yes, then he storms off.
Yeah, he storms off, leaving Elle sitting there, upset. And we cut to Charlie in his bed playing a very risky game.
Yep.
Never, ever, ever do your draft important messages in the actual message thread. That is what the Notes app is for. You figure out what you're going to say, and then you paste it into the chat and send it. Because if you accidentally hit send, you can't take it back, Charlie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My note says, trying to text Nick, his drafts make me too sad.
They are. They're very sad. But I can't even, like, focus on the sadness of it because I'm so anxious about him accidentally sending one.
Yes. Oh, my God. And then he sends, can we meet for lunch tomorrow?
And Nick responds immediately.
Yeah.
Little baby.
Yeah. And, like, he's just so innocent about it.
And he looks like he wants the ground to swallow him whole.
Yeah. He's like, fuck. Because, I mean, on subsequent watches, we know he's totally planning to break up with Nick. And you can kind of start to deduce it. And it just hurts my soul. Like, yeah. I've been thinking about rereading Nick and Charlie, and I literally can't bring myself to do it because the idea of the two of them, even temporarily breaking up,
I hate it. It makes me so upset. The next scene is one of my favorites of the entire series.
Okay.
I love this scene.
Yes.
So we see Tao, he's doing homework on his bed, looking upset, of course.
Yeah.
And we hear the doorbell ring, and we hear his mom say, Elle, it's so nice to see you. He panics. But what I specifically love about this part of the scene is that I love the camera work. I love that we're close up to him and we like pan out while everything is happening. And then as soon as he hears Elle's name and he starts to panic, we zoom back into him. And it's like, oh, it's so effective. I love it so much. And then he runs downstairs, and I also just love the body language. Like, he's very rigid, and he like is pulling on his sleeves and pulling on the hem of his shirt. And he's so awkward. Yeah. And I cackle every single time that his mom goes, just leave the door open a little bit, okay? And gives him a little wink.
Yes. I find it hilarious because, of course, she knows that Tao loves Elle before Tao knows that Tao loves Elle.
Yeah.
But also, I'm wondering if she says this every time Elle visits, because we've seen them in his room like 2 or 3 times already in this season. So I'm like, or did you just, with the way that he just went 0 to 60 back to 0, did you just put 2 and 2 together and realize that?
That's what I think. I think this is her being like, oh, okay, well, leave your door open then.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, like he gives her just the most like angsty teenage response, which only confirms it.
Yes. I wrote that Tao is thoroughly embarrassed.
He is, yeah. And he says, what are you doing here? And this is another question I have. She says, do you want to eat cookies and watch a film? Do they call them cookies or not?
That's a good question. I
thought it was biscuits.
Me too. I never thought about that because I more get annoyed because then they cut to upstairs and they are not watching a film.
No. I feel like he was like, well, I have to finish this first. And
okay, that's fair. Yeah.
He was like in the middle of it.
Tao is working on his drawing, and apparently it's supposed to be a shoe, although Elle thinks it's a potato. And he says that taking art GCSE was a mistake. And I have a wondering, which maybe British people can help me with. But so I'm wondering why if he knows it's a mistake, why did he do it in the first place? Did he think it wouldn't be a bad thing? But I also have a theory. I'm wondering if, because like he loves films, so I'm wondering if he thinks that art GCSE will help him with film school somehow.
Oh, interesting.
But this is where my like understanding of like GCSEs versus A levels kind of would make or break this theory, because I'm wondering how important GCSE scores are compared to A levels when it comes to like uni admissions, and whether it would actually be helpful to be like getting into like a film school, because film schools, it's like very artsy, like it might be an art school or it might be a BFA program, and having the GCSE would be, or like maybe he thinks that it would be to his advantage. Yeah. But I don't know how those scores are considered on one's transcripts in the UK when applying.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Mm-hmm. Really good question. If he thinks it'll help, like that would be a very Tao choice, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Elle calls it a shoe potato. Mm-hmm. Or no, he calls it a shoe potato.
Yes, Elle fixes it, and then he calls it a shoe potato. He says he'll cherish this shoe potato always.
Adorable.
Mm-hmm. And then he apologizes for like just storming off earlier. And he says that he thinks Charlie hasn't told him. So this is like a rare moment of self-awareness from Tao. I know. Right? Says he thinks Charlie hasn't told him because he's worried Tao will say something and accidentally out Nick to all his friends.
And then he kills it.
Yes. No, but the thing is, he kind of runs the risk of doing that exact thing later at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Because he has that argument with Charlie right in front of Nick and all his friends. Right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he has the self-awareness, and then he starts whining about how Charlie doesn't care about him anymore. And I'm like, and you ruined it.
Yeah, that's my note is like, it says, I was starting to be like, yes, Tal, you're getting it. You understand why he didn't tell you. Now go apologize and it'll be fine. But no, he has to go on the rant about how Charlie cares more about Nick's feelings and how friendships don't matter once you're in a relationship. And it's like, you were so close. You were so, so close.
Yeah. Elle tries to lighten the mood, which she had no way out of this conversation except to change the subject.
Absolutely.
So she tries to lighten the mood by saying that maybe Charlie's worried that Tal will force Nick to watch Donnie Darko like you did with the wretch with us, which fair. Have you ever seen Donnie Darko?
I have, yeah.
It's fucking weird.
Once.
Yeah. So Tal says it's a good movie. It's just complicated, which is also true. And then I have a little thing. So I said, but knowing Nick, he would not like Donnie Darko. No. And regardless, if it's a movie that it's not a movie that you can have forced upon you. Like you need to choose to watch Donnie Darko, and you need to be ready to watch Donnie Darko. And like even beyond that, I don't think that anyone should have any movies forced on them. Like I still haven't watched John Wick because I had a shitty roommate in college who tried to force all of us to watch it. And I don't like this person. And I actually jokingly the other day said, I was like, I think I'm finally ready to watch John Wick. I think I'm finally over the bullshit that guy did. And I'm finally ready to watch John Wick.
I'm giggling so hard because that's the same reason that I haven't watched The Witcher, the show, because someone that I don't enjoy is like super obsessed with it and would bring it up like constantly when it first came out. Like, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it? You have to watch it. And this is why. And I'm like, I will never watch that only because I don't like you that much that I will avoid an entire series because I don't want to give you the satisfaction of knowing that I watched it.
This guy literally hijacked the TV in our... I was living in an apartment. He was like, you guys have to watch this movie. It's so good. Hijacked the TV. I sat there for like 15 minutes and I was like, I'm unhappy. And I just went to my room and presumably played video games.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
So he says, this is one part where my heart does soften a little bit when he says I don't want to be alone, or I don't know why I'm afraid of being alone. Yeah, I'm scared of being alone. And she kind of deflates a little bit. Like she really feels the weight of that statement, obviously. And she's like, yeah, that's how I felt too. But then, I realized that I have to put myself out there. Otherwise, I'm just going to be alone. And I think that this is probably something that will stick in. I know that we don't see it in this episode, but I think this sticks in Tao's mind.
Yeah.
We'll see next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just too emotional this episode for any of the things that are being said to him to actually like process.
Mm-hmm.
But she signs the drawing.
Yeah.
Tao and Elle, and the look that we get from Tao is just, I mean, it's pure love.
Yes. I'm like, how do you not know it yet? How are you the only person on the planet? Like, your mother even knows, dude.
I think he knows a little bit.
Oh my God.
I think that if he didn't know, he wouldn't have come down as flustered as he did earlier.
Yeah.
He maybe hasn't accepted it yet. Like, maybe he's just now starting to clock it, but I think he knows a little bit at least.
Mm-hmm. Can we not talk about the last scene?
I hate it.
My note says, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 notes about this. 3 of them are in all caps.
I have a full page left.
Oh, well, here. Mine, this is all in all caps. This scene makes me so mad, I refuse to take notes. Charlie is being perfectly reasonable and you're being a dick, Tao. And then Charlie tries to break up with Nick, but is interrupted by Tao fighting Harry. And then Tao says the exact right thing to completely destroy Charlie, and then the episode ends.
Yep.
That is the entirety of my notes on the remaining minutes of the episode.
It's also a perfect summary. Good job.
I was like, I am only writing enough to just orient me into like what actually happened so that I can remember. But I'm so mad. Like
there's a lot of emotions in this last 5 minutes of the episode. And there's also a lot of back and forth here. So we start out at the picnic table, and Tao is outside by himself, and he texts Charlie and says that Isaac has library duty and he is alone, and he's trying to see if Charlie will come eat lunch with him. And Charlie doesn't say no. He says, I'll be there in a bit. I promised Nick that I would meet him for lunch. Mm-hmm. And Tao just loses it, and he says, don't bother. We're barely friends anymore. And then he slams his phone down as hard as he can. I'm like, dude. Yeah. Chill the fuck out.
He didn't even say, I can't today. He said, I'll be a few minutes.
That's a yes. I'm coming.
But just give me some time. Because I have to do a thing. For all, we know, what is really supposed to happen. But for all that, Tao knows, all Charlie could be doing is being like, hey, Tao's by himself. Do you mind if we go or I go sit with Tao? Exactly. It literally could just be as simple as that.
Yeah. And he literally says, be there in a bit. He's coming.
Yeah. It's
and so this reaction is unwarranted. And Charlie's face, he's fucking heartbroken. He's torn. Yeah. And he's trying to think about what to say. And he takes a big gulp. And then Nick walks up and says hi and sits down. Mm-hmm. And we cut. And we're outside again with Tao. And Harry comes over once again and confronts Tao, sits down at his table and says, all right, mate, not in the mood for that fight then? Mm. And it's like, you want to say he's got this weird friend that's obsessed with me, but you won't leave him alone. Yeah. Tao never once instigates.
Never.
He only reacts. Mm-hmm. It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
And he says only if it's in the form of a board game or a cake eating contest, which is top notch.
Yeah.
And that kind of just confuses Harry. He almost looks confused for a second.
I think it would confuse anybody. I think that is in fact the purpose of the statement, is to just confuse your opponent. You just want to throw them off.
Yeah, you could see his wheels turning, and he's like, how else can I get his attention? And then he smirks. There's just a quick second of a smirk before he grabs the drawing and starts being an absolute little shit. It's like, oh, what's this? Oh, who's Elle? Did your girlfriend draw it? And he jumps up and walks away, and that pushes Tao over his limit. He grabs his juice and follows him, and then he pushes Harry down, and he dumps his juice in Harry's face, and says, I hate you. And I say, we all hate him.
Yeah. Like, me too.
He deserved the punch earlier and he deserves the juice now.
Yes.
And so he jumps up and says, you're going to regret that, and gets up in his face. And this is another time I have to bring up the blooper reel that they released, because there was like so much juice in Cormac's face that he's like, you're going to regret that. And then he's like, just like trying to breathe, and they break out in laughter.
Trying not to drown in juice.
Exactly. But so then we cut back to the cafeteria to Nick and Charlie. And Charlie says, so I was thinking about me and you. And Nick immediately tenses up. I think he knows kind of what's coming. His face falls and he gets really fidgety. And Charlie says that all of Nick's problems are his fault, and he was thinking that maybe it would be better if we just... And Nick really looks like he's going to throw up and cry at the same time.
Yeah.
And Charlie also looks like he's going to have a breakdown like at any second. Neither one of them want this. And I hate that Charlie feels this responsible for Harry and Nick's rugby friends, because like they make their own decisions and it's not his fault. But I also understand anxiety and the way that your brain can fucking trick you into believing these things. And so I think it is a very realistic like representation of what it feels like to be in that position with that kind of anxiety. But I fucking hate it. But thank God we're saved from it by this little nosy kid that comes in. He's like, Harry's fighting some of your 10 at the picnic tables, and they immediately know it's Tao. Both of them look at each other like, fuck, and they take off. And they run out there, and we're mid-fight at this point, and Tao gets some good swings in. I'm impressed with, one, his ability to use his height to like kind of shift the weight of the situation, because Harry's obviously stronger, but Tao's bigger in like length, and so he uses his length to be able to flip them over a lot. I love that he uses his beanie to slap him in the face a couple of times. That's funny to me.
I don't love the fight choreography. It's a little like wimpy to me.
It's Tao though.
It is Tao. Yeah, that's Eddie and I were watching it, and Eddie went to school at his school. There were a lot of fights. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And he was like, "Don't you love?" He was like, "Ah, yes, this fight between two high school boys where no one punches anybody."
Yeah. And also, like, there were fights at my school, but never once was there like a crowd like this being
no, almost
everybody just like watches anxiously from the side.
Yeah. And like the fact that no one before Nick and Charlie show up like tries to pull them off of each other is peculiar, because usually there's at least someone trying,
or at least verbally trying, if not physically. It is strange.
It's an interesting scene.
But yeah, Nick and Charlie run up side by side, and Nick walks in and breaks it up. And Harry, obviously, of course, immediately turns and just starts trying to fight Nick. But then a teacher comes up and stops them. And we cut to Tao and Charlie.
Like
off to
not
the side.
20 feet away.
No, like to like 4 feet away.
Yeah. Shouting at each other.
Oh my God. And Tao, he like screams it. He's like, why didn't you tell me about you and Nick? And it's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Like literally, Harry is right fucking there.
And a ton of kids.
Yeah.
We don't know them. They could be just as bad or worse. And like, yeah, okay. In his defense, he is 15 years old. Hormones are raging. His best friend has kept like a secret relationship from him. And I have had my best friend keep it a year-long relationship away from me. And when she did tell me, I felt like shit. And so I don't know. And they stumbled all over his art project that he did with Elle and ruined it. I would cry too.
Part. Yeah. Did you write down what Tao said? Because I couldn't, and it breaks my heart.
He says, "This is all your fault. Just leave me alone." And he turns around and runs away. And then we're left with silence and Charlie's gasps. And
just panic attack city.
It kills me.
Yeah. It hurts. It hurts.
It hurts so bad.
And then the episode ends, and you're just like...
Where was our positivity this episode?
In the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, truly.
Like, literally, all we get, all of the only time that I'm happy in this episode is when Tori is talking to Charlie at the beginning of the episode.
And even, like, them hugging in the parking lot, and they're seen on the escalator, and then we see Ben and Harry, and then it's just shit from there on out.
Yep. Ugh.
So I think I know the answer, but where did you fall on the scale this week?
I'm struggling with this one because my rage, if it's the rage scale, we're at 1 billion out of 10.
Yeah.
But like the Heartstopper scale, I'm at like a 1.
Mm-hmm.
My heart does not stop.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about the near cardiac arrest from all of the anger, but I don't think that counts.
Yeah. I am right there with you. It's a 1 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
I think that there was a lot of potential in the beginning of the episode for it, but I do catch myself like holding my breath and like squealing and stuff there in the movies and everything. But the overall negativity of the episode and the anger and sadness that come with it, it overpowers it. And it's a 1 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
You're lucky I didn't give it a negative.
Yeah. If I had known that was an option.
I mean, if we can go past 5 in past episodes,
yeah,
I think we can go below 1.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly though, I think a 1 is fine, like because there are like little things, but
yeah. So what was your quote?
I don't know. Like I don't have things in this episode that like give me the feelings. Okay, so all right. Can just the line delivery of Tori saying "called it," can that count?
Yes.
That's my favorite part. That's it. Yeah, it's Tori saying, "called it."
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, and I love, her breath, like, the whole interaction right there when she's just, like, giddy.
It's the performance that makes it. Because I think that's my thing is, like, I feel like a lot of the time my, like, gut instinct with the quote is that, like, just the words on paper need to be good. And, like, there's nothing exciting about "called it," but just the performance of it just makes it so great.
Yeah, I always take the performance into consideration for mine.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair. I've already talked about mine, but mine is Nick saying, "But you shouldn't have to be, people shouldn't be saying stuff about you in the first place, and you shouldn't have to put up with anything like that."
Yeah.
1, just because that's like exactly what I was feeling in the moment the first time I watched that scene, and 2, because it's fucking true.
It is. So that is everything that we have for this episode. And of course, this is a bi-weekly podcast by 2 bisexuals. So we will be back in 2 weeks to talk about the finale, episode 8, Boyfriend. Get excited.
Hell yeah. If you want to follow us online, we are at Why Are We Cast on all platforms. And if you like this podcast, please consider rating and reviewing us. It really helps others find us.
I also recently started up a Discord server. So the link to join that will be in the show notes. And until next time, bye.
Bye.